In the pulsating heart of Rio de Janeiro, where hot asphalt met packed dirt and colorful houses huddled on the hillsides, Elara Mendes was born. Her favela, a maze of alleys and lanes, was a universe unto itself, vibrant and full of life, but also marked by scarcity and daily struggle. From a young age, Elara was a girl with large, curious eyes, who absorbed the world around her with uncommon intensity. Her mother, a woman of strength and unwavering faith, worked tirelessly at 2 jobs to provide for the family, while her grandmother, Dona Aurora, was the keeper of stories. Sitting on the porch under the sun that gilded Elara's skin, Dona Aurora wove tales of African kings and queens, of heroes and heroines who defied fate, igniting in her granddaughter a boundless imagination and a profound sense of belonging. But Elara's life wasn't made up of fairy tales alone. The world outside, beyond the favela's borders, was a hostile place, where her skin color and her address were seen as markers of inferiority. At school, suspicious looks and malicious whispers were a constant. Racial and social prejudice manifested itself in subtle and brutal ways, from the lack of adequate school supplies to the way she was treated by some teachers, who seemed to doubt her abilities before even giving her a chance. Elara felt the weight of being a black girl in a country that often seemed intent on erasing her. Playtime in the playground was interrupted by cruel nicknames, and the feeling of not belonging anywhere, even in her own land, was a heavy burden for a child at IT. Was amidst this harsh reality that Elara found an unexpected refuge: the movie theater. It wasn't a luxurious theater with plush seats and buttered popcorn, but rather a small, makeshift space in the Residents Association, with an old TV and plastic chairs. There, on Saturday afternoons, she would lose herself in distant worlds, in stories of love, adventure, and overcoming. The screen, even if small and somewhat blurry, was a window to a universe of possibilities. She saw actresses who, with the power of their performances, could transport the audience to other realities, awaken emotions, and make them think. It was there, in that humble corner, that the dream began to blossom. Elara didn't just want to watch. She wanted to be part of that magic. She wanted to be one of those women who, with their art, could touch people's souls. The Oscar, for her, wasn't just a golden statuette. It was the ultimate symbol of recognition, proof that her voice, her story, mattered. Yet, each time she shared her dream, the response was almost always the same: a condescending smile, a look of pity, or a "this isn't for people like us, Elara." The harsh reality contrasted brutally with her grandiose dreams. Many saw her as a deluded dreamer, a girl who didn't understand the limitations of her own world. But deep in her heart, Elara knew there was something more. A quiet force, fueled by her grandmother's stories and the magic of cinema, drove her to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could be the exception to the rule. The road would be long and arduous, but the seed of an Oscar was already planted in her soul, waiting for the right moment to blossom. Elara's fascination with cinema, once a closely guarded secret, began to find its way into the real world. At 12, a notice posted on the Residents Association's bulletin board caught her eye. Community Theater Group, free classes for young people. It was a modest initiative, led by a gray-haired, kind-eyed gentleman, Mr. Benedito, a retired actor who dedicated his time to nurturing talent in the favela. With her heart pounding with anticipation and a mixture of hope and fear, Elara signed up. On the first day, she felt out of place, intimidated by the more extroverted voices and the apparent ease with which other young people expressed themselves. But when Mr. Benedito asked each of them to improvise a simple scene, something ignited within her. She transformed. The shy, withdrawn girl gave way to a vibrant character, full of emotion and truth. Mr. Benedito, with his vast experience, immediately recognized Elara's raw talent and burning passion. Under Mr. Benedito's tutelage, Elara blossomed. He became more than a teacher. He was a mentor, a confidant, a father figure who encouraged her to explore the depths of her soul. In impromptu classes in the association's small hall, Elara learned not only acting techniques, voice projection, body language, character development, but also valuable lessons about discipline, resilience, and the importance of authentic storytelling. She devoured every word, every piece of advice, every piece of constructive criticism. The theater became her new refuge, a place where she could channel her frustrations, celebrate her joys, and, above all, be who she truly was, without masks or fears. She excelled, even with the limited resources. Improvised costumes, hand-painted sets, and a stage that was nothing more than a wooden platform. With each performance, no matter how small, the certainty that she had found her purpose solidified. However, Elara's passion for theater clashed with her family's expectations. Her mother, though proud of the sparkle in her daughter's eyes, feared that her dream of becoming an actress was merely an illusion in an already difficult world. "Elara, you need to think about your future. A real job, one that gives you security," she would say, her voice thick with worry. The pressure to find a job that would help support the family was constant. Elara, with her innate sense of responsibility, divided her time between studies, rehearsals, and small informal jobs. Selling sweets on the street, helping at fairs, and cleaning. She often arrived at rehearsals exhausted, but the energy of the stage and her passion for art reinvigorated her. She had to balance the hard work of supporting her family with the relentless pursuit of her dream, a delicate dance between reality and aspiration. Mr. Benedito, realizing his student's dilemma, always reminded her, "Art, Elara, is not a luxury, it's a necessity, but so is life. Find balance, and your art will be even stronger." And so, Elara, with the wisdom of a young woman and the determination of an artist, continued to take her first steps, balancing life's challenges with the unquenchable flame of her passion. The Oscar, which had once seemed a distant and unattainable dream, was now a guiding star, a beacon that urged her forward, even when the path seemed uncertain. At 17, Elara took a bold step that would change the course of her life. With the help of Mr. Benedito, who made contacts and wrote letters of recommendation, she secured a scholarship to a renowned theater school in downtown Rio de Janeiro. It was the opportunity she had dreamed of, but also a plunge into a completely new world, and in many ways, more challenging than the favela. The contrast was stark. The school's wide, silent hallways, the classrooms equipped with cutting-edge technology, and classmates from wealthy families with accents and cultural references that were foreign to her. Elara felt like a fish out of water, an intruder in a world that didn't seem made for her prejudice. Once explicit and direct, now manifested itself in more subtle but equally painful ways. It was in the surprised looks when she demonstrated intelligence, in the condescending questions about her background, in the way her classmates excluded her from conversations about international travel or Broadway plays she'd never seen. She struggled to fit in, constantly feeling out of place and underestimated. The competition was fierce, and the pressure to prove herself immense. Every class, every rehearsal, was a battle to overcome not only her own insecurities but also the limiting expectations others had of her. She studied day and night, compensating for her lack of experience with fierce dedication, determined not to let anyone doubt her place. One day, during an acting class, the renowned professor, a man with an imposing voice and an untouchable reputation, publicly humiliated her. "Elara, your talent is undeniable, but you don't have the profile for leading roles. Your experience, your aesthetic, they don't fit the standards that classical theater demands. Perhaps you should consider something more mainstream." The words, spoken with calculated coldness, struck Elara like a blow. Profile was a euphemism for her skin color, her origins, everything that made her unique. In that moment, her world seemed to collapse. The tears came, hot and uncontrollable, and the urge to give up, to abandon everything and return to the safety of her favela, was almost overwhelming. She locked herself in the bathroom, sobbing, feeling the weight of years of struggle and sacrifice transform into unbearable pain. But amidst her despair, the voice of her grandmother, Dona Aurora, echoed in her mind. "My daughter, strength lies in who you are, not in what others want you to be." And Mr. Benedito's words, "Your art will be even stronger if you are true," buoyed her up. Elara wiped away her tears, looked at her reflection in the mirror, and saw not a victim, but a warrior. She wouldn't let one man's limited vision define her destiny. She didn't have the profile he wanted? Great. She would create her own. She would use her experience, her aesthetic, her voice to tell stories that needed to be told. Humiliation turned to fuel, pain to determination. Elara returned to the classroom with her head held high, a renewed fire in her eyes. She knew the path would be even harder, but now she had an unshakable certainty. She wasn't there to fit in, but to redefine what was possible. The Oscar, once a distant dream, now became a symbol of her resilience, a promise that she would not only survive, but triumph in her own way. The following years were a whirlwind of hard work and small victories. Elara, now a drama school graduate, began to forge her path in Rio's artistic scene. She landed small roles in independent plays, low-budget commercials, and cameo roles in soap operas. Every opportunity, no matter how small, was embraced with the same passion and dedication that had driven her since the favela. Her presence on stage and screen, however brief, never went unnoticed. There was something in her eyes, a depth and a truth, that captivated the most attentive audiences and directors. Slowly but surely, her career began to take off. However, her rise brought with it a new layer of challenges and prejudices, more sophisticated and insidious than those she had faced in her childhood and adolescence. The entertainment industry, while presenting itself as a bastion of diversity, often relegated Black artists to stereotypical roles. Elara was constantly asked to play maids, suffering mothers in underprivileged communities, or shallow supporting characters whose stories served only as backdrops for white narratives. "You have a very strong character, Elara. It's hard to fit you into other roles," agents and directors would say, with a smile that hid the limitations of their own visions. Elara, having learned the lesson from the teacher who humiliated her, refused to be boxed in. She knew the value of her art and the importance of representing the complexity and richness of the Black experience. "My experience isn't a character, it's a story," she would reply, her voice firm. This refusal, however, came at a high price. Long periods without work became frequent, and financial pressure mounted. Her mother, who had always supported her, now expressed growing concern. "Shouldn't you accept what comes your way, my daughter? At least to keep some money coming in." The doubt, an old acquaintance, tried to creep back into her mind. She questioned her choices, her stubbornness in not giving in to industry standards. Was she a naive idealist? It was in one of these moments of uncertainty that Elara remembered her grandmother's stories of Black women who, against all odds, forged their own paths. She decided that if the industry didn't offer her the opportunities she deserved, she would create them. With the help of some artist friends, also marginalized by the system, she began writing. The play, titled Strong Roots, was an ode to her community, a powerful narrative about the resilience, joy, and struggle of Black women from the favela. She invested her last savings in the production, rehearsing in borrowed spaces and counting on everyone's goodwill. It was an act of faith, a bet on her own voice and the strength of her story. Elara knew the path would be even more lonely and uncertain, but the flame of the Oscar, now more than an award, a symbol of her autonomy and her ability to redefine success, guided her. She wasn't just chasing a role. She was building a legacy, brick by brick, with the strength of her own hands and the truth of her own soul. Reyes' Fortes wasn't just a play, it was a phenomenon. Elara's independent production, born of frustration and resilience, exploded with critical and public acclaim. Small theaters, once empty, now had lines out the door. Renowned critics, who had previously ignored her, praised her visceral writing and magnetic performance. The play, which told the story of her community with raw and moving authenticity, resonated deeply with audiences, especially those seeing themselves represented on stage for the first time. Elara, the girl from the favela who didn't quite fit the bill, proved that true art transcends standards and that truth, when told well, is universal. The play's success catapulted her to a new level of recognition and respect in the industry. Suddenly, the phone started ringing and emails piled up in her inbox. IT was on a rainy night, after a packed performance of Raízes Fortes, that Elara received the call that would change her life. On the other end of the line, the voice of one of Brazil's most renowned film directors, Marcos Valente, invited her to audition. He had seen the play and was impressed by her performance. Elara, who had always admired Valente's work, could hardly believe it. The audition was for a supporting role in his next major film, a historical drama about the struggle for social justice in Brazil. She prepared with the same dedication she dedicated to everything in her life, immersing herself in the character, studying every nuance, every emotion. And she got the part. Her performance in Marcos Valente's film was acclaimed by critics and audiences alike. Elara, even in a supporting role, stole the show, bringing a depth and humanity to the character that few expected. The industry's doors were flung open wide. Offers for more complex and challenging roles began to emerge, not only in Brazil but also internationally. She starred in films that addressed important social issues, always choosing projects that resonated with her own story and values. Elara wasn't just an actress. She was a storyteller, an activist, a voice for the voiceless. The Oscar, once a distant dream, now seemed a tangible goal, a recognition not only of her talent but of her journey and her message. However, success brought with it a new set of challenges. The loss of privacy was one of them. Suddenly, her personal life was in the spotlight, her every step, every relationship, every choice dissected by the media and the public. The pressure to maintain a perfect image, to always be impeccable, was exhausting. The envy of colleagues, who were once friends, also became a painful reality. Elara needed to learn to navigate this new world of fame and fortune without losing her essence, without letting herself be consumed by the superficial glitter of Hollywood. She clung to her roots, to conversations with her grandmother, to Mr. Benedito's advice, and to the memory of the girl who dreamed in a makeshift movie theater in the favela. The Oscar was important, yes, but even more important was the integrity of her art and the truth of her story. She knew that true victory lay not just in holding the golden statuette, but in remaining true to herself every step of the way. The pinnacle of Elara's career came with the invitation to play the lead role in A Voz de Liberdade, a biopic about Carolina de Jesus, one of Brazil's most important Black writers and activists. It was the role of a lifetime, the opportunity to give voice to a woman who, like her, had overcome adversity to leave an invaluable legacy. Elara immersed herself in the character with overwhelming intensity, researching every detail of Carolina's life, reading her diaries, and visiting the places where she lived. She threw herself into it body and soul, feeling a deep connection with Carolina's story and struggle. However, the production of A Voz de Liberdade was a journey fraught with obstacles. Funding issues threatened to stall the project, and on-set conflicts, fueled by egos and industry pressures, created a tense atmosphere. Elara, with her natural leadership and unwavering passion, became the driving force behind keeping the project alive. She used her influence to attract investors, mediated conflicts among the crew, and inspired everyone with her dedication. She knew the film was more than a work of art. It was a statement, a cry of resistance that needed to be heard. When filming finally wrapped and the film was in post-production, a personal scandal threatened to unravel everything Elara had built. A former schoolmate, driven by envy and resentment, leaked distorted and slanderous stories about Elara's past to the press, attempting to tarnish her reputation and the image of the film. The tabloid press pounced on the news, and Elara found herself at the center of a storm of accusations and judgments. The pressure was immense, and the possibility that the film, her masterpiece, would be marred by lies was unbearable. But Elara did not give in. With the same courage that had driven her since childhood, she faced the media and public opinion. In an emotional press conference, she spoke openly about her humble beginnings, the challenges she faced, and the importance of not allowing prejudice and envy to define who we are. She defended her work, her integrity, and the message of the voice of freedom. Her honesty and strength silenced critics and won the support of the public and the industry. The scandal, rather than destroying her, strengthened her, showing the world the true essence of Elara Mendes, an unbreakable woman whose truth was more powerful than any lie. the film The Voice of Freedom premiered to universal acclaim. Elara's performance was described as transcendent, powerful, and one of the greatest performances of the decade. Box office sales exploded, and the film became a cultural landmark. Months later, the news Elara had been waiting for her entire life finally arrived. She was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress. The dream, which had seemed so distant in the small favela movie theater, was now within her reach. The nomination was not only a recognition of her talent, but also the validation of a lifetime of struggle, sacrifice, and perseverance. It was proof that the voice of the girl from the favela, once silenced, now echoed throughout the world, ready to make history. Oscar night arrived, a whirlwind of lights, flashes, and emotions. Elara Mendes, stunning in a dress that celebrated her roots and elegance, walked the red carpet, cheered by fans and journalists. But behind the glamour, her heart beat a different rhythm, a mixture of nervousness and deep gratitude. She remembered the girl who watched movies on an old TV in the favela, dreaming of this moment. Each step was a tribute to her mother, her grandmother, Mr. Benedito, to all who believed in her and all who doubted her. Inside the theater, the tension was palpable. When the envelope with the Best Actress award was opened, the world seemed to stop. And the Oscar goes to Elara Mendes for The Voice of Liberty. The cry of joy that echoed through the room was drowned out by thunderous applause. Elara took the stage, her eyes welling up, the golden statuette weighing heavily in her hands, a symbol of a lifetime of struggle and triumph. In her speech, she didn't just speak about herself. Her voice choked with emotion but firm in her conviction. She honored her family, her community, the Black women who came before her and paved the way, and those who would come after. She spoke of the importance of dreaming, of never giving up, of using art as a tool for transformation, and of giving voice to those who have been silenced. "This Oscar isn't just mine," she said, raising the statuette. "It belongs to every Black girl who dreams in a world that tries to tell her she can't. It's proof that our stories matter, our voices matter, and our dreams are valid." Elara Mendes's Oscar wasn't just an award, it was a milestone. She became a global icon, an inspiration to millions of people around the world. Her win opened doors and broke down barriers in the film industry, paving the way for greater diversity and inclusion. Elara used her platform not only to continue performing in challenging and meaningful roles, but also to found an organization that supports young artists from underserved communities, offering scholarships, mentorships, and opportunities. She returned to her favela, not as a distant celebrity, but as the same old Elara, the girl who never forgot her roots. She opened a cultural center, a space where children and young people could learn about art, film, and theater, a place where new dreams could blossom. Elara Mendes' legacy transcended the silver screen. She proved that art has the power to heal, educate, and transform. Her life was living proof that with resilience, passion, and unwavering self-belief, it is possible to overcome any adversity and achieve even the most audacious dreams. The girl who was once silenced by prejudice was now a powerful voice, a queen in her own right, whose radiance illuminated the path to a more just and inspiring future for all.